is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 17th of September 2019, and I am 2J.
I am Tuam.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Standard, Wairimo, free me to fight for my property.
Yeah.
In the Star, Kenyatta to skip Mariga's KIBRA Jubilee campaign.
Yeah.
In the Daily Nation, Ministry clears the air on grade 3 tests.
Yes.
So it feels like we've seen these headlines.
Yeah,
before.
I think these are all Friday's headlines, exactly.
Yes,
absolutely.
But ongoing story with the Standard.
Yeah.
Wairimo wants you guys to free her to
collect her
property.
Let me say this, at a great risk of sounding extreme. You know, I would buy this paper because it's not just because of the headline, but this woman is stunning. And you see, there's something about a country that loves villains, and it's not just a villain. It's a pretty villain. They grip the country. Also, second point.
Oh, there was more than one point.
Yes, there's a second point. Do you guys remember this man called Joey?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The country hated that guy for about 2 weeks straight. It gripped the nation, and it said that this guy had murdered someone.
Yes.
But then after 3 weeks, the country started mellowing around this murderer. You know? And you see, that case has not gone very far.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
But I don't want to speak about the merits of that case.
My only worry is that as someone who's just lost her husband, her first concern is to fight for the property.
Yeah.
I think it misplaces, maybe doesn't do her any favors.
Yes.
But I do want to ask the question. We constantly accuse the DCI of talking with their mouth open.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think those are some of the arguments that her lawyer made in court yesterday, I believe.
Yes.
That she's been subjected to hostile media coverage and that everything has been published based on police records.
Absolutely.
So she doesn't even feel safe in court because everything is then being reflected on the papers.
Absolutely.
So I think the DCI should do themselves a favor and just keep it quiet.
Some of these cases, I don't know whether you guys watch CSI and all this investigative series. Once the DEA has made a decision, these things are not prosecuted out there in the public because some of the evidence needs to be kept watertight. Some of the things these guys are telling us, oh, this person called this person called another person, this substance was taken, and okay, let's not talk about the merits of the case, but then I think it's dangerous prosecuting this in the court of public opinion.
I definitely agree.
And I think they should solve first things first. Who murdered Tob Cohen?
Yes,
and then now move to...
And I think that's the point you were making. I think the court should put a stay on any conversation about her property. Let's deal with the murderer first.
Yes,
absolutely.
So we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves if it is topical or speculative, if it is repetitive or groundbreaking, if it is thoughtful or just plain lazy.
Yes.
I think we have a new angle. So it's still topical because it's ongoing.
Absolutely.
I think we can park it.
I agree. I like this headline.
Can move to the Star. Kenyatta to skip Mariga's KIBRA Jubilee campaign. I don't know. I kind of half expected him to.
Yeah, he's a busy man.
I think he's busy. He's building the nation.
And the president's most valuable asset is
his time.
His time.
So let him do state.
Yes, Ruto can compete with Raila. After all, Raila knows KIBRA better than anyone else.
Raila also just doesn't have a job, so he can go. He can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know?
I think that the Star here is trying to.
He has a job. He's building bridges.
Oh, okay. keep building those bridges.
He's engineer, lover man.
I think this headline is trying to stir the pot, and for that, I think we toss it. It's a bit speculative,
Absolutely.
In the Daily Nation, Ministry clears the air on grade 3 tests.
Oh my goodness, this story.
This story gave 2J anxiety.
I was really feeling for these kids. I'm like, you're 9 years old, you're doing this huge national exam.
The good thing is that it's not an actual ranking test.
Yes,
it's just,
And I think that's part of the problem with the CBC right now. There's a very huge miscommunication between what the Ministry of Education is intending and how they're disseminating that information to teachers.
It should have been straightforward.
It should have been straightforward. They're just trying to place the students, understand where they are.
But what was the Nation editor? There is a beautiful headline here. Wairimo hires pathologist, one more suspect charged. And here is Wairimo looking at the lawyer. You know, this should have been the headline.
Do you wish that was you being looked at like that?
And the one more
absolutely.
And the one more suspect.
The one more suspect
is Peter Karanja, the guy who had gone left his. So I think
I agree. It would have been a superior headline. And for that, because they failed, child.
I'd like to be
Up
looked
they
at
go.
like that, but I don't know whether he's worried about septic tank issues.
Oh my goodness,
Should
wow.
we be worried about?
And so that means that our winning headline?
Is from the Standard. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
To unstable. And to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a three-part criteria that we use to break them down.
Yeah.
We ask ourselves if they are humorous or dry,
Yeah.
if they are sarcastic or pessimistic,
Yeah.
or whether they're effective or just plain lazy.
Can we start
Yeah.
with the Standard, please?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because yesterday we called out Ozone
Yeah.
for having supposedly copied this VAR motif
Yeah.
in reference to the Mariga by-election.
Yeah.
And here we have today, Gado has done the exact same thing.
Will you describe it for us?
Let me describe it. The caricature of himself, Mariga, and he's there with the ANC and the ODM candidates, and they're waiting for the referee to make a decision. And the referee is IBC and is looking at VAR.
Yeah.
And there is Wanjiko asking, in addition to VAR, we also need a lie detector machine.
Yeah, and they're alluding to his ID,
His age.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This man, does he look 32 to you?
Are there no other football references that they?
Apparently not. And I also wonder, don't cartoonists look at what their peers are doing and then say, if this
Try to
guy's
be
done it,
different.
let me be original.
Absolutely.
For that, we toss.
in the Star.
In the Star. Yes.
Ozone.
So we have a screen.
Yes, you have a screen and it is and wires connected to the screen, and the wires are cut. And both are red and blue. And
One wire
what
says
is labeled Mother Most Foul. The other one is called Consolata
pupil.
Pupil.
Yeah.
What's Consolata Pupil?
So that's in reference to a viral video that is doing the rounds on social media about a kid who was using profanity, saying how he was going to abuse his fellow student.
Yes.
Personally, I feel like in this age of social media, we need to do a better job of protecting our children.
Agreed.
Yes.
But
I think what Ozone is telling us here is on our news, we wake up to murder, we wake up to Consolata people. Are we being, is it the banality of evil that we are being primed to accept and to normalize all manner of
I think that's what it
things?
is. I think it's about the normalization of these things.
Yeah.
Is it actually shocking anymore that you wake up and there's a headline about, a love murder mystery, or that children are using profanity because they're exposed to social media?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'm not surprised anymore.
But not a particularly inspiring cartoon.
Precisely.
In the Daily Nation, we have Dula. So Dula has drawn Mariga in his baby cot, which is yellow and red and jubilee colors.
Baby pram.
And he has a really nice looking Aya, or Nani, who looks like a character of Bonnie Kalwale.
Yes.
And he has a yellow apron and yellow shoes and a little milk bottle.
I'd call Monyonyi.
And then there's an IBC character. And the IBC character is saying to Kalwale, explain to him he is now a duly registered voter. And then down there you can see ga ga ga.
Have you ever seen a baby with a beard?
A Nigerian baby, maybe.
I think it's a good cartoon.
I think it is. I think
it's giving us a different rendition.
Let me tell you, if I was this Mariga man, I would withdraw from this thing.
Mariga, you mean?
Mariga. Because they'll expose the guy. They'll expose him, and everything he's done for country before will just be...
I think
but he's here now. So
I think what Dula is trying to suggest here is that Mariga is the child caught in between. He's a part of a proxy war. So even he doesn't know what's going on.
This guy is being used. Half the time he appears on press conferences, Nixon Korea is talking for him. This guy says 3 words. He says, thank you for coming. And then he goes,
Can we keep this as our winning?
Yes, definitely. Let the guy be great. Gosh.
No, I let him be. I mean, it's not up to me anyway.
Yes, there you have it. We have a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation.
Absolutely.
So what is our final thought?
And now our final thought, inspired by a book entitled Nothing is True and Everything is Possible by a Russian man called Peter Pomerantsev.
That's a good Russian accent you got there.
Pomerantsev.
Don't quit your job.
Verovsky.
Wow. All right. So as you said, nothing is true and everything is possible. The Surreal Heart of the New Russia by Peter Pomerantsev. written in 2014.
Yeah.
So Pomerantsev is a Soviet-born British journalist, author, and TV producer. So in this book, he maps out how the media in Russia have been co-opted by the state to execute its messages and its vision.
Yes.
And so he uses his experiences living in Moscow in the early 2000s to depict the unreality of Russian media.
Yes.
So what's happened in Russia is that television has become the nation's most powerful news medium.
Yeah.
And as such, it's become a political means to an end.
Yeah.
And so you have the powerful state-controlled outlets, they're dictating political opinion, and they're disseminating the Kremlin's narrative. So the Kremlin, if you don't know, is Russia's equivalent of White House, State House.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so just a bit of historical context before we get into what he talks about in this book.
Yeah.
So what you have is that after the fall of the Berlin Wall, about 1990, and the fall of the Soviet Union, Boris Yeltsin becomes the first president of the Russian Federation.
Yes.
And so on the face of it, he seems like pro-democracy.
Yeah.
And he played a very vital role in ending media censorship in Russia.
Yeah.
And so in his 8 years as president, several television stations grew up.
Yes.
And they were mostly linked to oligarchs.
Yes.
And these oligarchs really thrived under the Yeltsin government era because you had the privatization of a lot of government entities, and they were bought at pennies.
Oh, yes.
So you have people becoming millionaires and billionaires just overnight.
Just like that,
Yeah. And so what happens is then after these 8 years, Putin comes into power in 2000, and he demands that the oligarchs align themselves with his
him.
government.
Yes.
And he says, if you don't get on my train.
Yes, I will crush you.
Basically, exactly.
Yeah.
And so a big part of enforcing this was the nationalization of the media.
Absolutely.
And so he took control of all the major TV station, radio, print, and everything, and he said, this is now mine.
Absolutely.
And so it is through the television that the Kremlin would decide what the country's history, fears, and consciousness would be. These are very important things.
Absolutely.
And this is because Putin believes that he who owns the media controls what it says.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what you have in Russia is that the local TV is used as a way to climb into the nation's psyche and rewrite it from the inside. So you have the country which has really gone through this tumultuous period.
Absolutely.
You have communism, and then you have this pro-democracy Yeltsin, and then you have Putin who comes in and he's kind of like an authoritarian leader.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, you have internationally, you have RT, formerly known as Russia Today, which is a state-funded, they receive, I think, 300 billion locally from the government, which is the equivalent to BBC or Al Jazeera.
Absolutely.
And they ensure that they're promoting a Russian point of view all the time. And so you have this new type of Kremlin propaganda. So it's less about arguing with the West, as you had in the Cold War, where you're saying, we're communist, you're capitalist. And it's more about slipping inside to the language of what the West uses, and then taunting it from the inside and saying that, the West, you think you're smart? We're also smart.
Fantastic. Pomerantsev says the Kremlin vowed that it will never make the same mistake the old Soviet Union made. And that is make TV seem dull and boring. And the reason is I've coined a concept here. The reason is this. There is what I would call the post-Soviet Renaissance.
All right.
Now, immediately after the Soviet era, then he describes Moscow. There's huge cars, big houses, big parties, beautiful
fancy
women,
clothes, expensive watches.
Exactly. He says that Russia got a personality that it never had. But then what's his name, Vladimir Putin, comes in and says, this is not the identity Russia had. It's actually mimicking an order in the West. And also we don't want to go back to that which we had, right? But we still can create this thing. So he comes up and he says, I will create Russia in my own image. And Pomerantsev has a beautiful quote about how Vladimir Putin created a media that supported him all through. And he says this: the task was to synthesize Soviet control with Western entertainment. And at the center of the great shows is the president himself, created from a nobody via the power of television, so that he morphs as rapidly as a performance artist among his roles of soldier, lover, bare-chested hunter, businessman, spy, czar, and Superman.
He's all those things.
I love Putin, I really
Absolutely, he's all those things.
And I can see those images as you were saying. So he's done a good job. So the Kremlin became very aware of how information can become so powerful. And he's using that weapon very well. As you can see, pumping a lot of money into RT, Russian Today, and a lot of the media that they use.
Absolutely.
So how exactly does Putin control this media? He uses soft tactics. Less drama, it's less obvious, but it's very very potent. You never know when you're interacting with it, right?
Yes.
He applies pressure and then waits.
Yes.
So they use a thing called state raiding. So they use so the ones who had started to oppose him, or the independent media stations, they would use tax traps.
Yes.
So you haven't paid these taxes or legislative traps, and try and capture these people in some legal forays.
They call it the squeeze.
Yes, exactly. Squeezing them into irrelevance.
Absolutely.
So you find a lot of the liberal media has been pushed to like small studios. They don't have
apartments.
They're just basically not able to emit these messages. And the second thing he does is he has direct control. And I think you alluded to that. So the state came in and bought a lot of this media stations.
Absolutely.
And it is said that not a significant event in the media business can happen without Putin's sanction.
And so, I don't know if that's true, because I was reading another book called We Need to Talk About Putin, Why the West Gets Him Wrong. And in this book, he discusses that the vital skill in Putin's Russia has been predicting today what the boss will want tomorrow. And so he says in this book that Putin never directly says, I want you to go kill this person. He says, this person is causing me some distress. Sort it out. And so this is constantly what you see in the government, but also in the media. He never tells people directly what to do. He says, this is what I would like to happen, or this is my problem, solve it.
Absolutely.
And that's why they say his mercurial property, so his ability to not say what he is saying, is what makes him both strong, but also both elusive. And so there's a quote that says, Putin's regime switches effortlessly between identities, oligarchy in the morning, democracy at lunch, monarchy at dinner, and totalitarian state by bedtime. So you never know what you're getting. But then the last thing they say is that he's trying to constantly provide the alternative point of view to the West. This image in the Russian image that sort of looks like Putin but is strong, is all these successful things. However, I ask whether he is creating an alternative point of view or just an anti-point of view. So is he just countering what the West is doing as opposed to creating an actual narrative that is Russia?
But I think an interesting point he mentions in the book, he says that Russia might be naughty. They might misbehave every once in a while. We've seen this with Brexit, with Trump, with all those kinds of things. But he says the West is equally bad as well.
Right?
So I think it's only fair that Russia's given this chance to have their point of view, whether or not they know where they're going.
And he asks us, actually, he says, are you okay with having a single point of view? And I think all of us should have that. Why should we be okay with only having America
BBC,
dominate
CNN,
dominate the news? And so it is said that Russia spends $1 billion on international broadcasting. So it's not just domestic media. They're also looking to be
everywhere.
And also using human intelligence and cyber operations. So this covert influence tools. And I think we'll probably talk about that more tomorrow with Trump's election.
Turan is dying to make a point.
Please, go ahead.
You guys reminded me. You see, when this man took over Russia during Yeltsin era, it was a state of gangsterism. It was led by gangsters. This guy rounded up. There's a book you should all read called Once Upon a Time in Russia. He collects all these Russian billionaires and takes them to a secluded place in a forest. And he told them, this is not going to be the Yeltsin era or the Soviet Union. Now I am the boss. And he said, hoodlums cannot compete with hoodlums.
Yeah, that's true. And I think this book, what he talks about, that's very interesting as food for thought, is what is objective reporting anyway.
Exactly.
And he says he spoke to this man in Russia who works for the media. And he said, take a banana, for example. For someone, it's food. For someone else, it's a weapon. For a racist, it's something to tease a black person with. And so you do ask yourself, I mean, if a banana could be something different to three different people, what is objective journalism at the end of the day?
Exactly. You are right. And there's also another example that can be given. A lot of people thought that the Malaysian flight that was shot down in July 2014 was shot down by the Russians. In Russia, however, they say that it's the Ukrainians that shot it down. So there's just that, there's always another side to
force people to believe anything.
Absolutely.
So on a day where we had a winning headline from the Standard and a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation, I'd like to leave this for you to think about. For Putin, controlling the means of mass communication is crucial in establishing an unchallenged narrative to unite the nation. Therefore, we can see ways in which propaganda is not necessarily a bad thing. And for us, we should ask, how can African presidents or statesmen use propaganda to promote a Africa-friendly, Africa-first narrative?
Or even themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
How can we promote our values and
Yes.
what
Yeah.
we believe in?
Yeah.
But also remembering that with propaganda, you can only go so far.
That's
Yeah.
so true.
You can tell people how to feel, but after some point, they will definitely
recognize,
be like,
yeah.
this isn't real.
Yes.
So always ask yourself,
Yeah.
are you being informed
Yes.
or are you being confused?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to ask you guys
Yeah.
to subscribe to our channel and also look for us. We're on TV. We're on Pang, Free to Air, and Star Times.
Yes.
And Go TV.
And
Go TV.
Yes. Have a good evening.
Yes.